Welcome into the Illini Inquirer podcast. It is Jeremy Werner, Joey Wagner, our final six-pack preview for an Illinois football regular season game of 2025. Illinois enters the Land of Lincoln Trophy game 7-4, 4-4 in the Big Ten. It's probably a surprise from where we thought they would be in a negative way, Joey. Is they obviously came in with college football playoff hopes. More importantly, hopes of having 8-9 wins going into this last game. But the bigger surprise might be Northwestern being 6-5, already clinched a bowl game, 4-4, second full permanent season with David Braun. I had some questions about where they go year 3 with David Braun heading into that great new stadium in Evanston next year, but a surprise season for Northwestern, and they're a feisty crew coming into Champaign.
Yeah, even early on this season, you looked at Northwestern and it's like, where's this one going to go, right? You didn't really know how good Northwestern was going to be. I mean, they lose to Tulane to open up. Obviously, they crush Western Illinois. They lose to Oregon. That's a fine loss. They really figured it out. I mean, it's exactly a middle-of-the-road Big Ten Northwestern football team, and it's probably not what Illinois wanted to see coming into Memorial Stadium in the final game of the year. But Northwestern's feisty. They're fine enough team. You know what I looked and was kind of weird to me that I didn't realize? In Big Ten play, Illinois' offense is only averaging 3 more points than Northwestern's offense. That's not necessarily meant to be a barb at the Illinois offense. Like, Northwestern is better than you might be thinking if you just are a minute and 40 seconds into hearing or thinking about Northwestern. They're better than what you think.
Yeah, their defense has been better than Illinois so far this season, and their offense is starting to come on. They run the ball well. Their quarterback just coming off his best game, Preston Stone, Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week last week. So, yeah, Northwestern's a middle-of-the-road Big Ten team. So is Illinois right now. They're both 4-4, and this game will determine whether Illinois has a winning record in the Big Ten. So we'll talk about the significance of this one. Illinois has won 3 of 4 against Northwestern under Brett Bielema. That's nice that rivalry has kind of turned Illinois' way a little bit, but that'll be key to keep it going that way. As Northwestern's coming in feeling pretty good about itself, and Illinois licking some wounds from that disastrous loss at Wisconsin. And Joey, this could be a snow game. I don't know the last time I covered a game where snow was actually potentially on the ground of the stadium. Like, there's been some games where snow has happened, some flurries have happened, but it melts right away. Depending on where you're looking, this could be 3 to 7 inches of snow in East Central Illinois on Saturday. That just throws another huge wrench in this game that makes it less predictable because of turnovers, because of slipping, because can you throw the ball in the cold like that? All of that just adds to more importance probably in the trenches and just kind of a little bit more variance into it all.
Yeah, chaos, right? I don't know, like every model you see, and I'm literally the furthest possible thing from a meteorologist, but every model you see is a little bit different. It probably depends on where you are. This feels like there's a very defined line coming in terms of how much snow you will or won't get. But yeah, it'll be different. I did ask Josh Kreutz, or someone asked Josh Kreutz yesterday about a snow game, and he wants one, as you would imagine, Josh Kreutz to want. He said he had one in 2018. When he was in the state championship at Memorial Stadium. So it'd be kind of a full circle deal. I said, well, what's the key to a good snow game? He said, run the ball. Perfect Josh Kreutz answer. But yeah, I mean, the reality is, if that is how it turns out, Illinois is going to have to run the ball a heck of a lot better than it did in Madison. And it's going to have to stop the run a heck of a lot better than it did in Madison. And that's where you could look at this and say, uh-oh.
I agree. I think the snow favors Northwestern. They run the ball better. Their defense has been more consistent at stopping the run. I would say it's elite at that, but it's been more consistent. And Illinois is coming off a game where it just got beat in the trenches by a team who couldn't throw the ball. And where's Illinois' advantage? It's Luke Altmaier. It's Luke Altmaier when you can protect him. So that's a concern for me if this is a snow game, but you hope the offensive line, defensive line step up if it is that way. All right, let's just dive into our 6-pack of questions here, Joey. It is senior night for Illinois, 6:30 kickoff, NBC. Crowd probably will not be great for this one with the students on break, the weather that will be happening, how many people are actually going to travel to this one. But this is senior night with a really important senior class, Joey. So from question number 1, how will this Illini senior class be remembered?
You kind of have to look at this in a few parts, right? Because that's just how roster building is done these days. Obviously you've got the high school kids, a couple JUCO and then it's mostly high school and transfer portal for this Illinois senior class. But for the high school ones, they were the first ones to really buy in to Brett's vision of what this program could be. And really, you can throw in the holdovers from Lovey, Dylan Rosiak, Josh Krutz, Josh Geske as believing enough to stick around, right? And to be a part of this rebuild of Illinois football. And we say that it's not at its full peak, right? Like it's, I don't want anyone to hear this and think like, oh, well, they're saying it's just fine and well and good. No, there's more you want, but it's also a lot different than when those guys walked in the building in 2021. I think objectively you have to look at that and see that. So those guys really bought in. Like Gabe Ackes bought into that vision over going to Tennessee. Hank Beatty bought into that vision he was the second ever in-state commit for Brett Bielema. Kaneno Deluga, the class before him, was the first. Xavier Scott bought into that. Matthew Bailey bought into that. I don't know what those two could come back, right? But they're kind of technically in that senior window or that same class there. So that's meaningful, right? That's the first kids that Brett Bielema sat in a living room at Illinois and really made his pitch to come to Illinois and build this thing up. And then the transfers have had a huge impact on it, right? And in part because of what some of those guys, the 2022 guys, did to elevate the program, and where obviously the coaching staff elevated the program. But Luke Altmaier is one of the best quarterbacks in Illinois football history. It's his final game at Memorial Stadium. Tanner Arkin's a two-time team captain who's a phenomenal run blocker, I thought, as we talked about. He was put into some difficult spots in Madison. James Thompson's been a nice addition. J.C. Davis, Melvin Priestley have helped solidify your tackle positions. That's kind of what I wrote yesterday. I know I've just named everybody. All these guys, Miles Scott, have different little stories kind of built in. It's what makes college football fun. It's not like everyone's kind of, Miles Scott was a walk-on wide receiver, is a two-time team captain, safety. So I do think this is big picture, the first ones to believe and combined with guys who elevated it further, right? That's just kind of a combination there, but it's fun to think about the little stories and how this all came to be.
Yeah, you broke that down well. The last Lovey guys that remain, that last like in between class of Rosiak, Krutz, Geske, Pat Bryant was a part of that as well. Those guys sticking around and turning into some players. I remember talking to Pat Embleton today. He didn't know if he was going to be hired by Brett Bielema, what his next step was. And he said, I think we left him some good players, whoever that next head coach will be. We find out 3 days later, it's Brett Bielema. And those guys, wasn't a given that they would make an impact. And a couple of those guys did make an impact on a lot of winning. Then you talked about the prep class of Ackes, great find. Then you have to beat out Tennessee to get him. Hank Beatty, Matthew Bailey, Miles Scott, some of those early guys that got in and made an impact for you. And then the transfers really elevated this thing. The way I kind of think about it, Joey, is the Lovey holdovers, Brett Bielema doing an unbelievable job of keeping the talent that was here. Because you think of what Purdue's going through. Illinois didn't have to go through that. I know they only won 5 games that year and had some losses that they want back to Purdue and Maryland games in Bielema's first year. But that was a competitive start. And then the next year, you kept those guys again, and you have Devin Witherspoon and Quan Martin and Sidney Brown and Chase Brown and all those offensive linemen who help you build something and bridge to what is this class? What is this class of seniors that had a setback in 2023, battled through it, and had a great year in 2024 and had a solid to good year this year, to where you hope this is now the foundation, that this group was there in 2022 to see Lovey's holdovers do what they did, and now battled from a 2023 year that was disappointing and helped build it up to where the expectation is 7, 8, 9 wins for Illinois football. That's a heck of a legacy. And you hope they can go out, Joey, with a win to make that even better, to know that you're beating Purdue and Northwestern most years, you're beating Rutgers and Maryland most years. And now that next step is beating that next year Big Ten programs more often. But it's given Brett Bielema a great foundation to go, we'll talk about it, land a top 25, top 30 class to entice the next really talented quarterback to come to Illinois, to get talent here that can maybe take you to the next level. You at least have that foundation. And that's because the senior class and these transfers, a lot of guys who were overlooked. And that's why I kind of go back on, like, if people say Brett Bielema's not developing well enough, how many of these guys were top prep prospects, right? Like Luke Altmaier once was, but most of these guys, Matthew Bailey, Xavier Scott, if they don't return, Josh Krutz, Josh Geske, J.C. Davis, Melvin Priestley, maybe that gives you a ceiling. But Brett Bielema got a lot out of those players, and they kind of fit his tough, smart, dependable ethos.
Yeah, 100% on all that. Like, yeah, some of those guys stuck around or bought into the vision, and maybe they weren't swimming in Power Four offers, but to take what that, Matthew Bailey's, if this is it for him, I don't know if this is it. I kind of feel bad kind of lumping him into this, but he's in that 22 class, and he's going to have a decision to make. You go from a tough workout at Memorial Stadium where you don't get offer, and then all of a sudden, probably one of the two best defensive players on the team, on a Big Ten team that could win 8 games. Like, that's a hell of a developmental story, right? I mean, it's a good find. It's good development. Gabe Akis, I mean, was it Tulane he was committed to before, and Illinois goes and finds him, and they beat Tennessee, and you develop him into the second all-time leading sacks getter at Illinois. Like, that is
Melvin
really,
Priestley
really
is one of
good
my favorites.
development.
Melvin Priestley is one of my favorite, Joey, just because this guy went to Grambling for 2 years, was solid, had a lot of penalty issues. I know we're coming off a penalty issue game for him at Wisconsin, but he's turned his life right. Like, he's got a chance to play in the NFL. He's made good money here at Illinois. He's been a really good starting caliber tackle for them. This guy was overlooked out of East St. Louis, has had a lot of strife in his life. You wrote a phenomenal feature on him and everything he's had to deal with. He's one of my favorite stories of this class, but you're right. There's just so many of those. Xavier Scott, being the last blue shirt candidate. Nobody really offered him outside of Illinois and Pitt, and Pitt really wasn't going after him hard. He turns into one of the stars of the team the last 3 years. And it's a shame they didn't get to play this year, but we'll see what his future has to hold, just like Matthew Bailey. But there's a lot of those great stories.
Yeah, before we move on, I just want to make it clear. Like, we're bringing up Xavier Scott and Matthew, but we know there's more. We're not trying to say anything, right? We're not trying to be subtly about this. They're just in that class, and there are two guys who are going to have decisions to make. I just don't want anyone to hear this and like, oh, they're kind of flirting with the idea. We're just bringing them up because we're in the class, and they're going to have.
Yeah, we don't. I don't know if those guys know yet what they're doing.
Right, that's right. I just want to make that clear, just so it doesn't feel like there's some subliminal messaging. The guy, this will actually probably transition, Jeremy, into number 2. Hank Beatty is such a good development story, and a story really of sticking around, right? I mean, he comes in as a freshman. He plays very minimally. He kind of gets the feel. He goes through struggles. He dropped the ball at times, and that was supposed to be his thing, and kind of a slow build-up. And now he's going to have a chance to be an all-Big Ten wide receiver, and a guy who has had a huge senior season is going to give him a chance in the NFL. That's a good development story, and I think that is a transition into point number 2, isn't it?
Yes. So number 2, which Illini will make one of the top 3 all Big Ten teams. And I am so happy with the all Big Ten team right now because they have changed the positions. We now have individual interior defensive linemen and edge players. So those are separated because edge players would just dominate because they get the sacks, they get all the notoriety. So comes a little bit too late for a guy like T-Rod Edwards or Roderick Perry or somebody like that. But I'm happy they're doing that. They've added a wide receiver, which now there are 9 wide receivers who are all Big Ten as opposed to 6. That could be very important for one Hank Beatty this year. They've added a tight end. They've added, I think, another running back as well. So they've been adding a little bit more to this because, one, the conference has expanded, but also just kind of speaks to an actual football team because usually it's 3 receivers who are starting, or it's 2 interior defensive linemen are very different than the edge player. So I'm glad the edge interior defensive line thing has been added to the Big Ten here. But who do you think, Joey, will be on one of those all Big Ten teams? I did my exercise this morning as an all Big Ten voter. I was filling this out. It's one of the harder things to do every year is putting these together.
Yeah, in fact, it's kind of why I was going to just tell you to take it from here, but we'll just talk through it here. Gabe Akis is a no-doubter to be on one of those top 3 Big Ten teams. He's tied for 3rd in the Big Ten with 9 sacks. He's got his forced fumbles, splitting edge and interior. I don't know if that helps Gabe necessarily. It just kind of makes it a little less cluttery for Gabe Akis.
I think it probably actually hurts Gabe. He probably could have been a first-teamer if not for that, but with Danny Dennis Sutton at Penn State, Caden Curry at Ohio State, Anthony Smith at Minnesota, and then you're getting into Gabe, Mason Reiger, Derek Moore from Michigan. There's good players, but Gabe's sack total is certainly going to help him. Plus, he's a name that a lot of all Big Ten voters should know. So I think he should be at least 2nd team, but he could be 3rd team. There's an argument to kind of, if you have Derek Moore or Mason Reiger, one of those guys over him, it's not the worst thing in the world, but he should be 2nd or 3rd team.
Yeah, so he's, to me, really one of two for Illinois that you say is a no-doubter. Hank Beatty, because Hank Beatty's going to benefit from adding a wide receiver, not because I think Hank Beatty's numbers are fringe all Big Ten teams. There's just a ton of Big Ten wide receivers who are deserving. You got the two Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate. You've got Denzel Boston. You've got Mekhi Lemon, who I know I'm missing. Come on, help me out here. Who am I?
Omar Cooper Jr., Elijah
Cooper.
Surratt, KJ
Yes.
Duff, Ian Strong. Yeah, it's a
Yes.
loaded wide receiver group.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was worried if it were only 6. I mean, it's hard to keep the Indiana guys, Cooper and Surratt, off that, even though Surratt's missed time. Tate and Smith, Boston and Lemon. Like, if you didn't have Hank Beatty as one of your top 6, I would get it. Even the Rutgers guys have put up some huge numbers. So I do think he gets in as one of the top 9. You'd like him to have a nice finish to the season. But I think third team is probably most likely. I could see people voting second team for him. I could see some leaving him off just because there's other players who are in that mix. But I do think Hank Beatty should eke in there, especially if he has a pretty solid performance against Northwestern.
Yeah, I'm with you. That might be a tease for something I have later on, Jeremy. The one that's going to be kind of tough to come to terms with and just going to piss some people off, right? People who love Luke Altmaier. It's Luke Altmaier. As crazy as it sounds, he might be left off of this. And that stinks for a guy who's had an awesome season, but Sain and Mendoza are going to be on the top 2 teams.
Who do you vote, first team or second team? It's basically the Heisman vote, right? One of these guys is going to be like the second in the Heisman, and he's going to be second team all Big Ten. It's insane.
Like, this feels weird that we've watched this season of Luke Altmaier unfold, and there's a pretty strong reality that he might not be on one of the 3 all Big Ten teams. Because after you get through those 2, you've got Luke Altmaier, Dante Moore, Jaden Maeva. You could throw DeMond Williams in there, but I think it's probably a pretty clear Altmaier. Those are the 4 clear ones to me. That now you're just kind of in the hands of voters. How do they split that? Like, I think Luke Altmaier has a very legitimate argument to be on the All Big Ten third team. There's just a lot of names, man, and that is where you have so many names and so many different thoughts. Like, that's where it gets a little bit murky in terms of where he lands, and it just feels very odd to say and kind of a shame. I mean, I get it. This is a really good class of Big Ten quarterbacks, but Luke Altmaier is very much in that.
Dante Moore, I bet, will be the third guy. Jaden Maeva deserves to be the third guy, but so does Luke Altmaier. And I'm biased, so I'll probably maybe throw in Altmaier on that third team, but Dante Moore's had a phenomenal season. Jaden Maeva. What would USC be without Jaden Maeva right now, right? I know those wide receivers are probably a little bit better. You just wish Luke Altmaier's offensive line were a little bit more consistent. His running game was a little bit more consistent, and his defense was more consistent to help him, get the most out of him. But he's been phenomenal, and he deserves to be on one of those teams. The other guy, and it's weird to say because he's coming off probably his worst game at Illinois, J.C. Davis has had a phenomenal year outside of Duke and Wisconsin. You go on PFF, I think he's number 2 or 3 offensive tackle grade in the Big Ten. So it was a rough finish with that Wisconsin game, but he still is very much in the running for me to be an all Big Ten caliber player. I do want to say Hank Beatty is a return specialist. So you could have 2 Hank Beatty because he did have that punt return touchdown. Now, Caden Weechin at Iowa is an all-timer. He's going to win that. Jonathan Brady's another guy that's had a couple return touchdowns, but Beatty could be that third team return specialist. So we'll see if he gets.
You'd like him to have gotten a few more opportunities.
Yeah, that was the problem. Outside of that, I think the next guy, because I do think J.C. Davis has a decent chance, might be Josh Gesky. Like, Josh Gesky might have it. He's going to be honorable mention. This is by far his best year, and it's a guy we didn't mention a lot with the senior class, but his development just gradually getting better and better and better. I mean, his first season, him and Josh Creutz struggled as redshirt sophomores with consistency. Thought last year he took a step forward, but still had some down moments, Penn State being the biggest one. I thought he might have been the most consistent offensive lineman for Illinois over the long haul of this season. There just weren't many of those down moments. I thought he was just really good all season. So it's a guy that kind of gets lost in the shuffle, but I just wouldn't overlook Josh Gesky because, you look at these PFF grades, you watch the tape. I thought he had a really good year and wouldn't surprise me if he's in an NFL camp next year.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned him because he has played his best football this season There were moments last season too, right, where you watch Josh Gesky, it's like, all right, like that looks like a really. And then he had some of those lows, Penn State being one of them, but he's really leveled out this year. He's been a big part of this offensive line. So yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned him. I
I mean,
wanted
Matthew
to
Bailey's
talk.
one of the
I
Matthew
wanted
Bailey's
to
one of
talk
the best
myself into
players.
Matt Bailey.
It's just the numbers. I mean, the tackles are there. It's just the
everything
on-ball
else isn't.
production. Yeah,
Yep.
the on-ball production isn't there. So maybe if he has 2 picks against Northwestern, he could put himself into that mix, but I just don't know if the on-ball production is there. But I do think he's one of the better safeties in the Big Ten. It's just I don't think outside of tackles that the production's there.
Yep, 100%. That's exactly what I had written down on him. I'm just trying to go down
David
the
Alano,
line a little bit. David Alano was on my list as well.
I think Sean O'Hare at Maryland, Drew Stevens at Iowa are likely to get there. I think Alano will get all honorable mention at the very least. I think he was on track, Joey, to get all Big Ten, and then he's missed 2 out of his last 3 field goals here.
Yeah. Does any other receivers sneak into an honorable mention? I don't think so. I don't think anyone else defensively. I think Rosiak could have had some tackles had the injuries not kind of limited him a little bit this year.
Tanner Arkin,
really good linebacker.
The tight end is not a very deep year for the Big Ten, so it would not surprise me if the coaches love Tanner Arkin, right? And he got on one of the coaches' teams. Like I think he'll get honorable mention, but outside of Sadiq, McCree, and Claire, and Lance Mason at Wisconsin had a pretty good year. There's finding third team tight ends was pretty difficult if you're just going by receiving production. So maybe the coaches know Tanner Arkin's that good and put him in there.
Yeah, that's probably just because it's a stat, right? If you're covering the Big Ten from elsewhere, you're probably going to fall in love with receiving stats. I understand that. Arkin's blocking is really good. It is really, really good. Especially, man, the way he paved the way for some of those runs, the few good runs at Wisconsin. And he moves people. He's going to make money in the NFL, Kyle Shanahan, and probably stick around for a little bit because he can block as well.
The Maryland game, he was phenomenal too. I mean, he's been great run blocker all year, especially his quarterback design runs. He's been paving the way, just collapses the edge. Yeah, they got to replace him next year in the run game. He's been a big part of that. All right, coach of the year. Bielema's certainly not in that anymore, but Cignetti, Ryan Day, Dan Lanning was my ballot. There's not like that big surprise. I bet David Braun will get some votes because of his season, but I think too often, like, we don't just acknowledge the top teams, even if they have expensive rosters. Everybody's got expensive rosters now, but Cignetti, easy. But Ryan Day, Dan Lanning had really good years.
Yeah, I agree. Cignetti, it's a layup, right? It's not the out of nowhere that it was a year ago, but also the expectations weren't what Indiana has ended up being. They far exceeded expectations that were already pretty good coming in.
Does Lincoln Riley get votes?
If he would have beaten Oregon, probably. He got him to the playoff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had a good year for them. We'll see if they can close it out with another win. The holiday season can be so much fun around your loved ones, but it also can be stressful. Think about, what am I going to prepare for that holiday meal at home? What am I going to give that loved one for the perfect gift this holiday season? So whether you're setting an unforgettable gift or treating yourself to everyday perfection, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience. Gift USDA certified tender steaks, juicy burgers, cozy and convenient comfort meals, and so much more. I'm telling you, Omaha sent me some of the steaks, some of the burgers, some of the beef franks as well. Those delicious hot dogs. They're some of the best, most tender meat you can get. And now during their cyber sale, you can get 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites at omahasteaks.com. Don't miss the best deals of the season and exclusive limited time offers. Plus, our listeners get an extra $35 off with promo code Illini at checkout. That's $35 off with promo code Illini at checkout. Again, save big on unforgettable gifts with omahasteaks.com. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sale. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code Illini at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code Illini at checkout. Terms apply. See sites for details. All right, number 3, Joey. Bielema said on Monday that the 2026 recruiting class has 10 difference makers. I went on to say this is the best class he's added when it comes to guys who come in making immediate impacts. And a couple guys could probably come in and be in the starting lineup. Are you buying the hype on the class of 2026, which currently is number 25 in the country.
I really like the class. I think there's a lot of starters over the course of their career in the class. 10 difference makers is quite a lot. I mean, that is
that doesn't mean right away, right? I think that means
over the course of it, sure. So let's break it down a little bit into tiers, if we can, like the no doubters, the no doubt tier: Nick Hankins, Jacob Eberhardt, Nasir Rankin. Those to me are the absolute. Of course, you're going to start a lot of games here and probably have a big impact. Maybe in the case of Hankins and Eberhardt, sooner than later.
And I think Rankin, can he be a returner? Can like just find a way to get the ball in his hands? Do you bring him in and be like, oh, we could play DB right away for us? I don't know. Like, it's just that talent. I compare him to Terry Hawthorne. You find a way to get on the field pretty early. Hankins isn't like, I might project him to start now, Joey. I just think he's that caliber prospect. And they have a need for it. Eberhardt will be interesting. If Matt Bailey leaves, they envision him to be a Matt Bailey kind of player. I think he's got a little bit more explosiveness to him. So, yeah, I think those guys can play right away. I think Cam Thomas, a linebacker, that's a really big position and need for Illinois.
Yeah.
And he's built a little stronger, a little more stout than Grant Bierman was coming in. So he's got to figure out a lot of things about playing college football, but he's built well enough to play right away.
He was in my flirt with tier 1 category because I'm a huge Cam Thomas fan. I think you think long-term of him and Grant Bierman at linebacker, the Lakota West moves to Champaign linebacker duo. I still, long-term, huge fan of Tony Belongani. I think that ceiling is incredibly high. But I do like the depth, right? Like, these are guys who are going to start games. Your Almirian Thomases, your King Liggins, your Kai Pritchards, your Kenyon Alstons, your Casey Tomans. Those guys are going to start games at Illinois, and probably a good handful of them. They're going to be in the rotation. Like, I like those guys, and I think this class does have depth. Difference makers over the course. 10's a big number, but I guess to your point, if you expand that over 4 or 5 years, that can make sense. I'm thinking more when you posed the question to me, thought more immediately.
Yeah.
Right. But
I do think this is the first class. This is the first class, I think, in a while, though, that we're actually going to be talking about freshmen coming in and making an impact right away. Like during the Lovey era, like that's what you had to have. Like, because the talent was so sparse and the depth wasn't there. You couldn't go to the portal. You needed some freshmen to come in, and they just had to take their lumps. I do think there's going to be some freshmen that actually start games. That has not been the case very much in the Brett Bielema era, but I do think long-term, like you mentioned, this is good linemen, good trench players that are going to need some time, like Kai Pritchard and Casey Toman, good offensive linemen, Big Ten caliber offensive line prospects. Tony Belongni, I think the ceiling is huge for him, going to need some development. King Liggins, I think the floor is huge for him, and I think he's going to make an impact and just be the tough, smart, dependable guy. Parker Krim's a defensive lineman I really like. Jacob Alexander out of Lincoln Way East, he's the type of prospect who would have been a headliner for Illinois in some previous classes, and now he's like, oh yeah, him and Davon Grant, good in-state gets, solid, right? Those would have been headliners in classes before. And then there's a couple guys I just really like. Almirian Thomas, I love him physically, long, athletic, tenacious. Reminds me of Juice Clark. Kenyon Alston reminds me of Pat Bryant. Maybe not the most elite speed, elite size, just good at everything, physical blocker, go up and get it guy. I think Kenyon Alston's a really good wide receiver. So those are two of my guys in this class. And then, Joey, you still have a chance to add a guy like Champ Smith, a 4-star offensive lineman you're battling Tennessee and Ohio State for down the stretch. Lance Dawson, a 4-star defensive lineman who's committed to Cincinnati. You're trying to flip him. So this class could get even better. And Champ Smith's a guy who most offensive linemen don't come in and start right away. Champ Smith would come in and compete right away for a starting job, potentially at guard. So, yeah, it's a different level of talent. There will be some guys who make an immediate impact. But I think long-term, this is a caliber of class that can help Illinois continue its march up. You got to supplement it. You got to develop it. You got to have good coaches to develop it all. But I think Brett Bielema's got that for the most part. And, it might take 3 or 4 years to see the ceiling of this class, but you're going to see some of these guys hit the field early.
Yeah. What I'm also really curious about is what Monday and Tuesday of next week are fascinating days to me. Wednesday's signing day, so maybe even a little bit on Wednesday. But you're probably going to see this carousel spin after Saturday.
Yeah.
especially for the non-playoff teams, and then whatever it is that Lane Kiffin has planned for his future. Like there are going to be dominoes that fall, and I would imagine Brett Bielema and his staff are going to be working the phones trying to catch some of those dominoes in terms of guys who haven't yet signed before that, or who can't sign until Wednesday. So that's just a little wrinkle to watch. Is this carousel I think is going to go, and that when you're like that is the value of stability for Illinois. Is your carousel ain't moving, right? You are exactly in a spot that you can sell stability. I think maybe there'll be some coaching. If there's a coaching change on the staff, we'll see how that goes. But that'll be just a little wrinkle to see what happens in those final 2 days before signing day.
The other thing is they're recruiting JUCOs very heavily. Already have Alfred Washington, offensive lineman. I think will compete for a 2-deep spot. We'll see if he's strong enough to start right away. But they're in on some other offensive linemen, Micah Matalau, who's got some big-time offers. Oregon, BYU, Wisconsin have come in and been in that recruitment. TJ Taylor, JUCO offensive lineman, one of the top 2 JUCO tackles in the country. They got Dre Riley, a JUCO safety, free safety, who's visiting right now. They got to replace Miles Scott, and he's a really good athlete, can tackle. And then they're in on some corners and linebackers too. I just offered Archie Chambers, a JUCO linebacker. They're going to go hit that, and I kind of like it, Joey. Just add some depth pieces, some competition, some guys who can make an immediate impact. Maybe not all of them work out. We know that's not the case with JUCOs, but to get some spots filled in the 2-deep and potential starters before that portal opens up in January could be important, especially when you're talking about dollars, right? Because the portal is going to be a little bit more expensive than a lot of those JUCO guys.
Yeah, I mean, to build out a 2-deep, or at least the shell of a 2-deep, and then be able to supplement that when you get into the portal, and we know that's a really competitive landscape in terms of building a roster financially, in terms of interest, all of the above. So I do like that's you're just supplementing this prep class that we think is good with guys a little bit more physically matured at some positions. And like I don't know that any position that we've seen in the JUCO offers or kind of on that recruiting trail have surprised us in terms of what they are looking to add. It all makes a great deal of sense.
Yeah, we'll cover the heck out of signing day. If you're not a VIP member, sign up now, 75% off VIP membership. It's going to be a busy week covering recruiting for us at Illini Inquirer. All right, number 4, Joey. How important is this game against Northwestern for the Illini program?
It's really important. I think let's just stop there and acknowledge it's a really, really important game, because the difference in how you're perceived if you're 8-4 in the regular season or 7-5. And listen, we could have said this in a number of years, like, man, you got to win that 7th game, because then you're, like every year you can say, well, obviously one more win is important. But I think when you like the 8-win bar in the regular season feels like kind of a differentiating line of the who's who and kind of where you are.
A winning Big Ten record, right? A winning Big Ten record,
right.
Differentiator.
Yeah, so like that feels, and again, maybe it's just a prisoner of covering this for the last however long, but that feels like a really different kind of spot to put yourself in versus 7 wins. But then I also think, like, if you look at what 7 wins could possibly, how you would look at that season, right? Obviously, there's disappointment that you're not in that college football playoff, but you would have gone from a top 15 team preseason with playoff aspirations, and then 7-win season. Like, that is a fall. That is where it's like, oh goodness, like what
with losses to Wisconsin and Northwestern to end the season, 2 of your rivals, 2 of the teams you recruit against the most, that'd be a total disappointment of a season. Yeah. So listen, I've been saying, hey, 8 wins wouldn't be a bad season. I think it'd be a solid season for where the program is right now. I thought 9 would have been a very good season. I thought 10 would have been an unbelievable season. 7 would be a disappointment, no doubt.
Absolutely. And again, to your point, like if you win against Northwestern, well, now you've won 3 or 4 going into a bowl game, and you can at least have some sense of momentum in the big picture going into the offseason, going into that bowl game. Otherwise, you're 2-2 down the stretch with the losses that you mentioned and the wins over Rutgers and Maryland that are teams that are going to be in that bottom quadrant of the Big Ten. Like when you think of taking this out on the recruiting trail, right? Like teams can pick that apart and teams can highlight that and kind of who you're recruiting. And just from a fan base, man, 8 wins is good. I think a lot of fans would sit back at 8 wins and say, well, dang, that sucks that this wasn't a playoff team and I'm disappointed in that. But hey, 8 wins with a chance at 9, it's a pretty good season. And when you factor in that you've done that 3 of 4 seasons where you'd have 8-win regular seasons, like, okay, that is something like that feels really, really tangible to me.
That's Iowa. It's different. It's a different style than Iowa, but that is what Iowa and Wisconsin did for all those years. And I think it's really important to win this game to reclaim that momentum, finish top half of the standings. Because if you don't, Joey, you're bottom half of the standings. You'd own that rivalry for another year. 4 out of the last 5 years against Northwestern, I think, is really important. And then you go to Nashville or Vegas, most likely for a bowl game. If you lose this game, you might go to the Pinstripe. And who wants to go to New York for a bowl game, open air stadium, open air, like go to New York around New Year's Eve? Not fun for me. I don't know how much fun that'd be for other fans. And losing again to Wisconsin, Northwestern to end the year, that'd be huge bad taste in your mouth. So I think it's really significant for perception, for momentum. And, you have a disappointing season like 7-5 after coming in number 12. People get fired for that. And that could, coaching changes could happen for 8 wins this season, but you'd have to make some changes. And again, like you said, other coaching staffs can poke some holes in that. So I think it's just a really, really important game to get back on the right path here, Joey. And it sets up a potential 9-win season, right? Like you can go to a bowl game, win a 9th game, feel pretty good about that.
Real quick, obviously you and I are not really clamoring to go to New York in an open air press box, but fans don't care about you and I shivering while we take notes during the game. But
they don't want to shiver in New York.
They don't. And also, like, there's financially, like, I would imagine going to New York around that point in time is going to be a lot different price point than going to some other bowl games. So you and I don't really care to do that, but from a fan perspective, like it's more financially viable for Nashville.
I'd rather go to Detroit. I'd rather go to Detroit than New York for that bowl game.
Because it's inside.
Yeah, and it's a drive. It's easy, not expensive. So
yeah, and I think I bring that up because like Illinois fans will travel. We know that, but you also don't want to stress their budget all that much to go to New York around New Year's Eve for a bowl game. Like it is so much more viable to drive 5-6 hours if you're in Central Illinois or wherever down to Nashville or hop a flight from Chicago, whatever that comes to be.
And how many bowl tickets are you selling if you have 7 wins compared to 8 going to Nashville or 8 going to Vegas? A little bit different. One of my favorite things about waking up in the morning is coffee. And it's even better if you get it from Columbia Street Roastery. And the best thing to do around the holidays is give coffee. And they got a great way of doing that. Columbia Street Roastery, if you go to csrcoffee.com, they have a subscription box that you can get. Each month, Columbia Street sends you freshly roast coffee of 3 different half-pound bags. You can get from their flavored coffee box, their dark roast, their medium roast, their decaf box, and you can get a subscription for $25 per month. What a great way and what a great gift to give. Or if you want to get something for yourself, go to csrcoffee.com. Check out all their fall flavors, all their great brews, and they also have tea and hot cocoa. So go check them out at csrcoffee.com. And our listeners, you get 10% off your first order if you use the code GOILLINI2025. Again, go to visit csrcoffee.com, get 10% off your first order with the code GOILLINI2025. You get free shipping on orders over $45. That's all at Columbia Street Roastery at csrcoffee.com. All right, number 5, Joey. What is the key for the Illini offense against Northwestern's defense, which, as we talked about, they take the ball away pretty good, right? They middle of the pack, sacks, kind of middle of the pack run defense, a little bit lower than middle of the pack pass defense. But what's the key for Illinois' offense after a bad showing at Wisconsin?
Yeah, this is going to be way too simple. Protect your quarterback. Protect Luke Altmaier. We haven't seen Luke Altmaier under the pressure that he was under in Madison since Indiana.
Yeah.
That's the last, you can't, that is your competitive advantage, is Luke Altmaier. I don't care if there's a foot of snow on the ground. Luke Altmaier at every turn is your competitive, in all climates, he's your competitive advantage. He just is, right? But you've got to give him time to read a defense, slippage in the snow could be possible. DBs could fall too. And you need that guy to have time to get it to Hank Beatty, to Colin Dixon, to Hudson Clement. That is not the pressure he was under is not acceptable, right? Like that is way too much. And like there had been times in the season when you could say, hey, Luke Altmaier's got to get rid of that. He's helped. I didn't really feel like that was overwhelmingly the case in Madison. That like, hey, that guy's some of those maybe one you could say was on Altmaier, or you probably maybe, but for the most part, that guy had no time. So you gotta give him time to pick apart a Northwestern defense that in Big Ten play has allowed 215 pass yards per game. Like this is, as you mentioned, a very middle of the pack defense for Northwest. They only have 11 sacks in Big Ten play. That ranks 15th. So this isn't Wisconsin. This isn't a defensive front that's so stinking good.
Just to support that, sorry to interrupt you. Wisconsin, I think they have a good pass rush. I think Northwestern has some good defensive front players, but they have 17 sacks all season. Wisconsin had 31. Wisconsin's front is way better. I do think Wisconsin's got one of the best defensive fronts in the Big Ten. It was what concerned me going into that game, but I did not expect Illinois' offensive line to get beat like that.
No, and so Northwestern has 6 sacks over its last 4 games. 3 of those came against Michigan. So you just got to give the guy time. I don't care if it's snow. I don't care. You find time to let that guy throw the football. You do that. Like I will take my chances if Luke Altmaier has the ability to pick apart a defense and get the ball to some of those playmakers.
Yeah, the other part of that, I totally agree with you, Joey's run the ball effectively, right? First and second down, awful the other day. And, Barry Lunny was interesting talking to us, Joey, about like he got away from the run maybe a little bit too early in that game. Brett Bielema said that as well. And I do think because it was a close game, like it did feel like they just tried to air it out a little bit too much. And some of those first and second down plays didn't work really well. But I didn't think Khalil Valentine had a great game. I didn't think the interior of the offensive line had a great game in moving. And I just didn't think Caden Fagan got the ball enough. I'll say it again. So just run the ball effectively to set up Barry Lunny to have his full playbook and to set up Luke Altmaier for success on 3rd and shorts. You were 3rd and 9 was your average. Your average third down distance, 9 yards against a great defensive front. That is disaster. And it just allowed Wisconsin to pin its ears back. So got to run the ball, man. You can't run the ball for 50 yards. Great running against Rutgers, great running against Maryland, and then it just all fell apart against Wisconsin. So offensive line has to have a bounce back. And I think, Khalil Valentine, when you see the hole, you need to hit it. And Caden Fagan, I think, needs to get the ball a little bit more, especially if we're going to have a snow game. I just think Illinois got to be the more physical team in the trenches. They certainly were not against Wisconsin. I did think they were against USC. I thought they were even against Washington. I thought the offensive line was the more physical team. And then Rutgers and Maryland, they certainly were. So got to get back to that up front.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like Caden Fagan had 5 touches against Wisconsin. I would hope it is more than that. Against Northwestern and see, especially if it is a snow game, I'm still letting Luke Altmaier do Luke Altmaier things, whether it's snowing or not. But you do have to run the ball far better than what you did in Madison. This hasn't been a very consistent rushing game, but given they were coming off of back-to-back 200-yard games, you expected more. Like we knew going into that wasn't going to be 150-plus rushing yards for Illinois in that game. I thought it'd be more than 50.
It's all Luke Altmaier right now. It is all him. Your offense is completely all him. That can't be the case. You got to get these running backs involved in it and into some positions to succeed. Like I don't think Valentine's played all that well the last 6 games when he has had some opportunities. I think Fagan's been your best back. Finding a way to get him the ball in some space and just finding a way to establish downhill running game. Like your interior offensive line and your offensive line has to set that tone. But when Fagan's gotten the ball and got good blocking, he's been getting yards. And I know people say he runs like he's a 160-pound back. I don't think that's been the case the last 4 or 5 games, Joey. I think he's been getting pad level low, getting upfield, getting downfield. I think he's your best back, and I try to get him 15, 20 touches in this game.
Yeah, maybe some on short passes too, to let that be an extension of the runner, because he's got good hands. And when he gets out to that edge, like you think of him physically as large as he is, like you think of him the tackle, and I think he has been churning out those critical 4-yard, 5-yard runs. He's so tall, when he falls forward, you get a little bit more. But when you get him out on the edges, that is, I think, historically where we've seen a really, really good version of Caden Fagan. However that comes to be, whether it's a short pass or a pitch, he has excelled when he's been able to get outside.
Yeah, and it's probably criticism of Barry. I do know, Daryl Peterson, knocked some of them down to the ground. But I did think against Wisconsin, it took them too long and didn't do it enough. Was with all that blitzing, got to have a counter to that with some of the quick passes. They had a great one to Cole Rusk in the flat where he had a first down or 9-yard gain on first down. More of those, like the extension of the run game plays where you have Hank Beatty or Hudson Clement lined up in the backfield and you get them in the flat. Tight ends, like a rollout to a Tanner Arkin for a 5-6 yard gain. I'm fine with that, Joey. Or Caden Fagan involved or Khalil Valentine in the passing game, just to get some of those quick hitters that kind of make that pass rush think twice. But kudos to Wisconsin, Peterson especially, knock some of those down at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I know we talked about that in the post-game pod on Saturday night, was we'd like to see more counters. And it did feel like there were more there kind of in theory and tried, but they got batted down a lot. I just want to see more and more, right? I mean, I do think Barry Lunny tried to get some of those going, but Daryl Peterson was really, really good.
All right, number 6. What's the key for the Illini defense against Northwestern with what you said, Joey? Pretty well-rounded offense right now. Preston Stone, 25 of 30 for 305 yards and 2 touchdowns against Minnesota. Illinois' passing defense has been kind of an issue, but obviously they got run over a little bit, missed some tackles against Wisconsin as well. So what's the key for Aaron Henry's crew here?
It's kind of the same thing as last week. You've got to stop the run. You cannot let them come in and run over you. Northwestern in Big Ten plays averaging 163 rushing yards a game. That's 5th in the Big Ten. Again, what you start looking at these Northwestern stats, like, oh, that's better than I thought it was. They're 5th in conference play in rushing yards. You've got to get that contained and make Preston Smith, who is slinging it, but he's also thrown tied for a league high 9 interceptions this season. You have got to make him throw that football a little bit. So, and that concerns me. It concerns me, your ability to stop the run when you just got bulldozed for 200 yards in Madison. I know 84 of those came on Darian Dupree's big run. You still got run over for 200 yards. And it felt like Wisconsin got the yards when it needed the yards. 84 was a big one, but they also just were very consistent in matriculating the ball, with the running game. You've got to get that under control.
Not a lot of negative runs of 1 yard or under, right? Illinois had a lot of those. Didn't feel like Wisconsin had a lot of those.
No, but the thing is, to your point, with a little bit more well-rounded, you sell out to stop the run. And Preston Stone can throw it around a little bit. He is right now, he's a better passer than Carter Smith. They wanted Carter Smith to run the football. That was by my read, his primary goal against Illinois. This, you gotta not let Wisconsin or Northwestern control the tempo and keep Luke Altmaier off the field. They are good down to down. Their scoring maybe isn't there, but they can matriculate the football. Northwestern can. So you don't get run over again. In the last 5 games, Northwestern has rushed for 150 yards 3 times. Worry about that. If the elements are there and kind of where this Illinois defense or what this Illinois defense is coming off of, because if Preston Stone has to throw the ball like he did it against Minnesota might not be all that good.
No.
Right? So if he has to throw the ball, for the most part, I think where Illinois is. But if they're able to run it and then play, pass off the run, that's where it's this could be a long, sustained drives for Northwestern.
Yeah, Caleb Kamalafe, really good back, redshirt sophomore, 886 rushing yards, 10 touchdowns. And they have Joseph Hyman, who's kind of their scat back. He's been there a couple years. He gets involved in the passing game, more the outside runner. They have a good offensive line. Caleb Tiernan's one of the best left tackles, not only in the Big Ten, but in the country. And they got some physical offensive linemen. So I think they're going to try and set the tone there, set up Preston Stone for some man-to-man coverage. And he was really accurate against Minnesota. And where he likes to throw the ball, Joey, the middle of the field. And one of my biggest concerns about this defense right now is linebacker play. The linebackers have not played well here recently. I didn't think Malachi Hood and James Kreutz had good games. Dylan Rozek has played well when he's healthy, but he's been dealing with that hamstring injury for the last month and a half now, feels like. So the linebackers really got to step up their play. Matthew Bailey's got to be really, really good in the middle of the field, but their running backs are their best weapons. They got a solid tight end. They got a good slot receiver in Griffin Wild. It kind of reminds me of Hudson Clement, but not greatest on the sidelines. they like to do a lot in the middle of the field, and that's where the linebackers really going to come into play. I think they're going to target those guys, both in the run game and in the passing game. So you got to be a lot better in the middle of the field. My key, Joey, can we get a takeaway? Can this defense get a turnover? Because outside of Miles Scott's, Hail Mary interception at the end of the second half against Maryland, this team's been awful at getting interceptions, and they force some fumbles. They got to recover more of them. They've forced 14 fumbles, which is great so far this year. They've recovered 8 of them. 3 hit the ground against Wisconsin. You didn't recover any of them. Those are game-changing plays. James Krutz drops the pick 6 in Washington. Kurt Neal and James Thompson are able to get that fumble deep in territory after Gabe Akis almost just wrecked the game there. You got to make the most of those moments, and they just haven't been. So if you get your hands on the ball, you got to be able to catch it. I understand Tanner Heckel and Matthew Bailey have had some issues with their hand this year. They've had injuries there, but you got to find a way to get some of these takeaways, Joey, because that's probably what's going to happen. In a snow game like this, whoever gets the takeaways is probably going to win the game. Whoever sets up their offense on a short field is probably going to win the game. And Illinois has not been that team. They're a -6. I think it's in their last 6 games in takeaway, in turnover margin. They've had 7 turnovers. They've only gotten 1 takeaway. It's got to change. Like that. That's what this defense is supposed to be built on, is bend but don't break, get those big plays and turnovers. That's only really happened in 2 games this year. That's Purdue and Duke. Defense got to step up, make a game-changing play, get that takeaway.
Yeah, the only other takeaway in Big Ten play was Dylan Rosiak's interception against USC, which was a really good play.
Huge play.
Yeah, you've got Illinois right now has 3 interceptions this season. 3. That's an incredibly low number, of course. It hasn't been since 2013 that Illinois had that few of interceptions in a season. So, yeah, I'm with you, and it kind of probably will play into something down the road here. But a quarterback has shown a proclivity to – Preston Stone has thrown picks. He's thrown 9 this season. You've got to maximize that. But in order to do that, you got to stop him from running it all over you and just taking some of those shorter passes. So, yeah, you got to get one, man. You've got to get one.
Well, and it's weird because, last game they didn't have a lot of pass breakups because they didn't have to pass the ball very much. They passed the ball 11 times. The 2 previous games, you had 18 passes defense, Joey, 1 interception. Those got to turn into plays. You just got to notice that play. You got to act on that play. See what you see and act, pull that trigger and make that play. They got to find a way to get that big play on defense. It just hasn't been happening enough this year. All right, picks to click, Joey. You want to start us off with your pick to click offense? We didn't hit on any of our picks to click last week. There really weren't many to.
That is stunning.
Unless you're Gabe Akis or anybody else. I don't
Gabe
know.
Akis.
Luke Altmaier maybe ran for one. You had Colin Dixon, I had Cole Rusk. You had Miles Scott, I had Angelo McCollum. So didn't hit on any of those. Who's your pick to click this week? Offense.
Feels like it's Hank Bailey. I'm just gonna keep playing receiver musical chairs until I land on the right one. I think Brett and Barry are very aware of moments. I feel like they want to get Hank Beatty a little bit more involved. What I want to see with Hank Beatty, and it's what we haven't seen since the Washington game. Hank Beatty, so Washington game, he was targeted 6 times on passes of 10 or more yards. It's been 2. They've been very comfortable letting him be the underneath guy, which I get. Hank Beatty with the ball in his hands, you will take that. But I also, it seems to me, and I was going through the numbers while you were talking, it seems to me earlier in the year, they were midway through the year, they were targeting him more, a little bit more intermediate and letting him get out into space. Snow could complicate that. I understand that. But I just want to see maybe a little bit more depth to some of those reps. Try to get him the ball where he's at that second level already, and then you're just making fewer guys miss in an ideal world at that point. I trust Hank Beatty to do that. The weather's concerning, but I'm going to stick with him. I just feel like I've pretty much picked every other wide receiver every other week. So now it's time to circle back to him. And he's still getting targets, right? He's still a very active part of this offense, but I just wonder if they can try to push it a little bit more depth to some of those routes.
Yeah, teams are scheming for him. Illinois has been using him more as a little bit of a decoy, and teams have been keeping him under wraps a little bit more because they know he's their go-to guy. But yeah, 4 of the last 5 games, it's been 10 yards per reception or lower right? So it's been more of like the Isaiah Williams slot. Really, Isaiah Williams' first year in the slot. See, I had Hank Beatty written down, but I'm kind of glad you took him because it just gives me another chance of feed 3. This is a snow game. You want to set the tone in the trenches. Give the ball to Caden Fagan. This needs to be a 15-touch Caden Fagan game. And if I want to get my offensive line, setting the point of pride and saying, like, we're going to rely on you. Like, yes, we're going to have Luke Altmaier throw the ball, but you have to set him up in good situations. We're running the ball right behind you, and we're giving you the 6'3", 250-pound running back in the snow, and we're going to just push it forward with him. I think this has got to be one of those grinded out games, and he's your grinded out running back. So I just need to see it more. I know Khalil Valentine is going to be really good next year, and you want to have that explosive back in the snow like this. Just give me 3-5 yards every play, Joey, and set my quarterback up in spots. So I'm going to go Caden Fagan.
It is. I am not surprised by that. At some point, like, was it really the Maryland game that you were really very firmly all aboard the feed 3? Like, at that point on, you're right though. Like, because
it worked when they did give him the ball.
He's visually been like, it just looks like he's running the ball better. The stats aren't there. We talked about that. I understand stats don't lie for the most part, but when you watch him, he's running more decisively. He's going to fall forward up for a couple of those yards. Like, there is value to 4 and 5 yard gains, 3 and 4 yard gains. There's value in that over time. I'm with you. I want to see more of him getting the football, especially if the elements are a factor.
I'm seeing way too many negative runs when he's not in the game.
That's been his whole career too, right? He's always historically fallen forward. It's like his first 60 carries, he didn't have a negative run. Like, he is just going to fall forward. He's not a perfect back. There are flaws to pick in his game. That's college football, literally, for virtually all of your non-Jeremiah Smiths of the world. There are flaws to pick in his game, but he is getting the job done and just picking up a few of those at a time.
All right, pick-to-click defense, Joey. Who you got?
Well, I'm going to believe in Brett Bielema for a quick second here and trust that his middle linebacker is going to play in this game, as he said.
Do you?
I do. Maybe that will age poorly. I don't think it'll age all that poorly. I would think he'll be out there. Dylan Rosiak. Like, if I'm going to sit here and say you've got to stop the run,
that's a guy.
Dylan Rosiak is a good run-stopping linebacker. He pass protection, he can get, or pass coverage, he can give up some. But if you get that guy downhill at a running back, he usually is in the right spot, and he's a pretty sure tackler. I will take that against a Northwestern team that we think is going to probably come in and try to run the ball. I would be floored if they come in and try to set the tone through the air. Like, this is going to be a team that wants to run. I just think Dylan Rosiak has continued to play good ball, especially in run defense and run fits. You could tell they missed him last week in that second half. Like, they missed that guy. He's a good football player. Feels like a time for him to roll up 7 to 10 tackles and maybe gets the for old time's sakes and one for the road, he punches one out. Because Illinois' defense needs it, and he's pretty good at doing that when he's out there.
I like it. If he's healthy, I feel a lot better because the linebacker play otherwise is really, really concerning me. I'm going to go with a guy that kind of, I don't know if last year against Northwestern was his breakout, but he ended up playing 94 snaps in that game because Northwestern had the ball so much because Aiden Lawfrey just had the shortest drives because the long runs. He got targeted a lot, gave up some yards, but he also had a couple pass breakups. Juice Clark, it's time for a big game. He doesn't get targeted as much as his teammates right now because he's their best cornerback. He's their best cover guy. But it is time to make a play. And the thing about Preston Stone, he's got a lot of confidence right now, Joey. He's slinging it. He's slinging into some tight windows. So kudos to him. He was really accurate against Minnesota, but he hasn't been through most of the season. It's going to be a cold day, hard to grip that ball. Snow could be on the ground, could be slippery. Jaheim Clark needs to make a play on the ball. It's time. He hasn't had a career interception yet. So whether it's 3 pass breakups or an interception, you need your number one corner to look like a number one corner. And I think spur Joey, what could be a really, really good senior season for him, is one of the best players on that defense. So it's just that natural progression. He's around the ball. He's getting a lot of pass breakups now. Now make a play on the ball.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do wonder how much opportunity. That would be my only concern there is opportunity for him. But yeah, I absolutely on board with that. And I thought last season was kind of that moment where it's like, oh shoot, yeah, he's a pretty good player, and you would have liked to see him be healthy to open up this season to really carry that into it. But he's their best cornerback. He might be a top 3 overall defensive player. He definitely will be, I would imagine, going in to next season. So that time feels right.
All right, let's go with our bold predictions. We wrap this up, Joey. I'll start.
Please.
For old time's sake, it's going to be a 1-score game in the fourth quarter. Luke Altmaier's final game in Memorial Stadium. Luke Altmaier game-winning drive.
Oh, I thought you were going to go to the Jordan Anderson touchdown. Well,
no. Oh. Luke Altmaier's final game. What a fitting way would be for Luke Altmaier to lead a game-winning drive in the fourth quarter for Illinois.
I like that. All right, I can see that. That's
uncomfortable. But
yeah, that's page 700 of the game thread of freaking out when he goes and does that, right?
And just to be clear, to qualify for this, it has to be the fourth quarter. It has to be game tied or Illinois trailing late in the fourth quarter for this to qualify. So this can't be like, yeah, he scored in the third quarter to give him the game-winning drive. Can't be that. It's got to be fourth quarter, under 5 minutes, game tied or trailing.
Well, don't come back next week or for the next 6-pack and be like, well, listen, he had the game-winning touchdown is the first quarter, but he was able to do that.
Listen, we hold ourselves to a high standard here, Joey, so I wanted to set a high standard for hitting it.
Yeah, that's what they say. Yeah, that kind of get a little redemption for 2020. He didn't play in 2023, but a little redemption for the last time they came to Champaign and you didn't get that game-winning drive and kind of flipped that a little bit. Obviously, Luke Altmaier wasn't in that game. John Paddock was. I did not get this far in my prep. I did get a defensive one. But I'm going to say I'll stay on the feed 3, so this is probably going to get your pick to click.
Oh, you're hedging.
You know what? I am. I don't like that. I'll give it Tanner Arkin receiving touchdown. I won't hedge, so I can also win bold prediction. I do kind of like the idea of him. Not kind of. I do like the idea of him in those flats. And if you can get down into the red zone, if this is a game where the weather is an issue and you're not going to be able to chunk and big play down, you have to get down in that red zone area. I just like the idea that Barry Lundy's going to get creative. Last week in the end zone or the red zone, notwithstanding, that you're going to somehow find a way to get a quick little dump off to Tanner Arkin. And I do think they're here to win games, right? But I do think that they are cognizant of moments and giving him an opportunity to have a touchdown at Memorial Stadium in his final game there, and kind of remind people that this dude's been a pretty good tight end.
Yeah, he's
for the last couple of years. Receptions aren't there, but he's been a pretty good tight end.
Pretty good in the red zone too, whether it's blocking or catching the ball. All right, my bold prediction defense, and based on what we just talked about, it is a bold prediction. Illinois will get a takeaway, Joey. It's going to happen. A takeaway. Let's go together. We can just make the bold prediction together. They get a takeaway because, boy, that would be bold for this team. I think
Jeremy and I are like doing like a cliff jump into the water, holding hands. Like they'll get one. They'll get one takeaway
holding hands
in this game. Yeah, I'm with you. I wish I had a different bold prediction, but that is my bold prediction. I don't want to revisit that now. It's crazy, right? It's crazy that one takeaway is bold. That is not enough. That's not good enough.
Especially after what we saw against Duke, right? Like I thought they did a great job of forcing those. Of maybe a couple of them help you because Darian Mensah holds on to the ball, but you force some of those, and it's been nowhere near what we've seen the rest of the season.
Okay, to be different, let's just try to differentiate this a hair. I'll let you call whether it's a pick or a forced fumble. The tie goes to whichever one happens first, if it comes down to that. And if somehow in the world there are multiple.
I'll give you the one that seems more likely because it's snow game. Forced fumble, I'll take the interception since I picked Juice Clark. That's
fine. How did Gabe Akis hitting Carter Smith last week and that ball literally sitting, how did that not get picked up? Like that, there have been enough moments like that over the last 2 games of the ball's just hanging in the air, the ball's sitting on the ground. That's like, oh my goodness, how is this not? There was a punt, right? A couple weeks ago where it's like that ball just sat there. So Gabe Akis is a candidate. Dylan Rosiak is a candidate. Preston Stone likes the middle of the field. He doesn't like the deep middle of the field, though. So I think that is kind of an important caveat to have in there. One of those, I like that. We'll be different enough to have that. But 3 interceptions in this in the season, 2 in Big Ten play. One was a Hail Mary. You're not going to tell Miles Scott you're taking a pick from him, but that was not a particularly consequential moment in the game. That's absurdly low. For a team that returns what they return, that knows that it's got to be a bend but don't break, take the ball away defense, that is incredibly low. Like 12 years low for Illinois and programming. That's crazy to me.
All right, big one. Illinois 7-point favorites at home. We'll see how they respond to the elements. We'll see how they respond to probably a very, very small crowd on Thanksgiving weekend. But in that, everybody have a happy Thanksgiving weekend. Enjoy the time with your family, with your friends. Enjoy all the football that will be happening, all the basketball that will be happening. I'm heading out to New York to cover Illinois, UConn, and hopefully all the travel goes well so I can get back to Champaign for the 6:30 kickoff against Northwestern, but Joey certainly will be there. But we appreciate you all listening to the Illini Inquirer podcast. Give us a follow, rating, review, wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. We'll have a lot of content over the next week with Illinois football recruiting and signing day coming up, Illinois wrapping up its regular season, basketball heading to go play UConn. A lot coming up at Illini Inquirer. So go sign up for a VIP membership. It's 75% off right now for your Black Friday sale. For Joey Wagner, I'm Jeremy Werner. Everybody have a great day. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer podcast.